The series begins at a high school, where our actress Lin arrives and sits next to her friend Yang. She sees him sleeping and decides not to wake him up, so she puts a piece of paper on his face. Then the teacher enters the classroom, visibly angry because the exam scores were very low. He starts writing on the board, and when he finishes, he notices Yang is still asleep. When he calls on him, Yang wakes up startled and asks Lin what the teacher said. Lin tells him that the teacher wants him to erase the board. Yang believes her and erases it. When the teacher sees this, he gets very angry and punishes Yang by making him stand for the entire class. After the class, Lin is afraid Yang might hit her, so she tries to run out of the classroom, but Yang calls her a coward, making her come back. They then engage in a challenge while the rest of the class watches. Yang easily wins and tells Lin that since she lost, she must do whatever he asks and then leaves. The next morning, Lin talks to her brother and learns that their mother will be coming back from work the next day. Lin is very happy and prepares herself. At that time, Yang wants to ride his bike, but he finds the seat is missing and realizes that Lin took it, so he takes her seat in return and leaves. When Lin comes out, she sees her seat is gone and takes her brother's seat instead. When she catches up to Yang, they start fighting, and he gives her his breakfast as usual and reminds her about the challenge she lost. Lin tells him she is ready to do whatever he asks. Yang sees a pair of tight jeans in a clothing store and tells Lin to wear them to school. Lin complies, and when she arrives at school, everyone is staring at her in surprise. She enters the classroom feeling embarrassed, but her friends applaud her for fulfilling the challenge. Then the teacher arrives and makes her leave the classroom. While standing outside, her brother sees her and is very happy about what happened because she took his bike seat. Lin returns home happy with her jeans, but suddenly her mother comes home, and Lin quickly hides the jeans. She goes to the kitchen to talk to her mother and asks her to stay home instead of going back to work. While her mother is cleaning the house, she finds the jeans. At the same time, her husband comes home, and she suspects him of having an affair. Lin retreats to her room and hears her parents fighting because her mother thinks her father brings women into their home. Lin feels guilty. Her mother leaves the house and Lin follows her, trying to explain what happened, but her mother interrupts and tells her to focus on her studies before leaving. Lin starts crying, feeling responsible for everything that happened. The next day at school, Lin is angry with her friend and refuses to talk to him. She writes a note explaining everything that happened and blames him for it all. The teacher sees Lin distracted and calls her to solve a math problem on the board, but Yang doesn't know the answer, and his classmates laugh at him. Lin returns home and sees her brother looking for their dog. Feeling scared, she goes to Yang's house but doesn't find the dog. Yang follows her with an umbrella to help her search. Lin sees her father in a car with another woman and realizes her mother was right. She panics and runs into the street, nearly getting hit by a car. Yang saves her and holds her close, but Lin gets angry and tells him that he is the cause of all her problems, and she never wants to see him again before leaving. Yang is upset by her words and follows her, returning the umbrella. Lin goes home and Yang comes to apologize, but she refuses to talk to him and asks her brother to close the door. She tells Yang that they are no longer friends. When her father comes home, she confronts him angrily, calling him selfish for always leaving them, and then goes to her room. Then she calls her mother and says that they need her to come back home, but her mother responds that she is busy and hangs up. Lin starts crying, and her brother comes to see her packing her bag. She tells him that she is going to their grandfather's house to focus on her studies. The next day, when Yang arrives at school, he is surprised that Lin did not come to school. After school, he goes to her house and asks her brother, who tells him that Lin went to their grandfather's house. Yang then takes his bike and rides to her grandfather's house, where he sees Lin reading. He wants to call out to her but is afraid she is still angry and decides to leave feeling sad. Days later, the exam period arrives, and we see Lin working on her exams. She recalls memories of her childhood with Yang and realizes she misses him. Lin then says goodbye to her brother because she is moving to the university dorms, entrusting him with their dog. Her brother asks if Yang will be accompanying her, but Lin feels anxious and says she doesn't want to trouble him, then leaves in a taxi. Arriving at the university, she is happy and sees a group of students trying to rescue a cat stuck in a tree. Lin offers to help and climbs the tree herself. Soon after, the cat climbs down on its own. A handsome boy named John approaches her and introduces himself, asking what she is studying. Lynn replies that she is studying veterinary medicine because she loves animals. John shows her the dorm where she will be staying. Lynn thanks him and says it was nice meeting him before heading inside and introducing herself to her roommates. She is happy to find they are kind and understanding. The next day, they attend a lecture together. The professor mentions that the smartest student in the university is John. Lynn is surprised to learn that John is also in the veterinary department. She overhears her friends calling John handsome. After the lecture, she walks with her friends, who ask her to wait while they buy ice cream. At that moment, she sees a young boy playing with a bow and arrow and offers to help him. Initially, she fails but tries again. Yang appears and helps her succeed. Lynn is surprised to see Yang and notices how different he looks without his glasses. Yang tells her he also attends the university and is a member of the archery club. Lynn returns to her friends, but Yang insists she stay with him. Reluctantly, she agrees, and they leave together. They are both shy and avoid talking to each other as they walk to get food. Yang teases Lynn as usual, and she challenges him to a game, confident she will win this time. Unfortunately, Yang wins again and takes all her money, forcing her to follow his orders so he can pay for the meal. When Lynn returns home, her friends ask about Yang. Lynn explains they are friends and neighbors. Her friends comment on how handsome he is, which surprises Lynn because she never saw him that way. The next day, Lynn meets John, who invites her to a place with many cats. Lynn is very happy and starts playing with the cats. Meanwhile, her mother calls and says she wants to meet, so Lynn hurries to see her mother, feeling very happy. Her mother has brought many gifts for her and tells her to call if she needs anything while she works at the hospital. Lynn is overjoyed and says goodbye to her mother. And then Lynn calls her brother to tell him she saw their mother and says they will reunite soon. However, her brother doesn't seem happy. Then we see Yang practicing archery. The coach notices him and is impressed by his skills, asking him to become the team leader. Yang feels anxious and fears he won't be able to handle the responsibility, but the coach reassures him, saying he believes in Yang's ability to handle it. Yang agrees. At that moment, Lynn is in the lab attending an anatomy class. Her friend is scared of the worm, but Lynn confidently handles it and performs the anatomy, impressing her classmates with her bravery. Meanwhile, Yang is having lunch with his friend when Lynn sends him the worm she dissected. Yang feels mixed emotions when he sees it. Later, Lynn arrives at the restaurant where Yang is, and knowing she doesn't have money, he invites her to sit down and order what she wants. His friend leaves to get the food, and during this time, Yang teases Lynn, saying she can't eat unless she says something nice to him. Lynn complies, thanking him and calling him smart and handsome. Yang then secretly arranges with his friend to record a video of Lynn without her knowing. When Lynn gets ready to eat, Yang stops her, which angers her, and she tries to fight him, but he gives her food she dislikes and orders her to eat it. Lynn eats the food angrily. Yang then sends her the video and threatens to share it with the entire university if she doesn't treat him well. His friend asks why he is doing this, and Yang explains that Lynn used to insult him all the time at school. Later, while Lynn is napping in the library, Yang calls her and orders her to meet a girl who likes him because he doesn't want to meet her himself. Lynn is forced to comply, and when she meets the girl, she is surprised to find out that the girl likes Yang and wants a relationship with him. Lynn informs Yang about the girl's feelings, but Yang asks her to pretend to be his girlfriend to keep the girl away. Initially, Lynn refuses, but later agrees and tells the girl what Yang asked her to say. Yang listens in on the conversation to ensure Lynn isn't lying. Lynn returns home and tells her friends what Yang is making her do. Her friends are shocked because they thought Yang was a nice guy. One night, while everyone is asleep, Lynn sees someone in a black jacket entering her room and attacks them, screaming to alert her friends. It turns out to be their friend who had returned from vacation. The next day, during a lecture, Yang is absent, and the professor asks the students to write down their names. Yang arrives late and asks Lynn to write his name for him. Lynn reluctantly agrees, but the professor starts calling out names before she can finish. When Yang's name is called, Lynn tries to pretend to be Yang, but the professor recognizes her and scolds her, causing her classmates to laugh. Yang arrives and the professor yells at him, warning him not to be late again. That night, Lynn and her friends play a game, and Lynn loses. As a punishment, she has to call someone and confess her feelings. She asks Yang, but he refuses in front of everyone, embarrassing her. Lynn feels humiliated and her friends try to comfort her. She then attacks Yang out of frustration and accidentally hurts him. Feeling guilty, she takes him to the hospital to clean his wound and apologizes, asking for his forgiveness, but Yang refuses. Lin becomes very angry and storms off. When Lin returns home, she discovers that someone has recorded a video of her beating Yang, and it has been shared in the university group. People are saying she hit him because he refused to give her attention, making Lin feel embarrassed and causing her to cry. The next day, she goes to school hiding herself and hears students talking about the incident. When she goes to get food, the students recognize her and start treating her badly. Lin then approaches Yang to talk to him, telling him that people think she is chasing after him and asks him to tell them the truth. However, Yang refuses, saying she deserves it, and leaves. Lin gets very angry and wants to hit him again but decides to take revenge instead. She sees him putting his clothes in the laundry and slips a red sock in with his clothes. When he returns, he finds his clothes have changed color. At that moment, Lin sends him a message asking how he likes the new color of his clothes. Yang realizes Lin did it and gets very angry, deciding to get back at her. He posts an email saying there is a girl chasing him because he refused to give her his account details. Lin sees the post and gets furious that he made it public. Later, Lin goes to a place with many cats and meets John. She tells him she needs money and asks if he knows of any suitable jobs. John says the archery team needs help, and if she gets accepted, she will be paid well. Lin likes the idea and decides to apply, despite having no experience. However, the coach is impressed with her personality and decides to accept her. She then finds out that the team leader is Yang. The coach gets angry with Yang for neglecting practice and injures his face. Lin comes to help treat his injury and tells him that from now on, she is the team's assistant. Yang starts training for the competition with Lin by his side to encourage him. Unexpectedly, Lin overhears the coach on the phone and learns that if the team wins, the coach will be replaced. The coach tells the person on the phone not to tell the team to avoid demotivating them. Lin goes to Yang and tells him everything to motivate each other. Lin starts encouraging the team, playing music for them, distributing water, and joining their training sessions to keep their spirits up. However, the basketball team arrives and mocks the archery team, turning off their music. One of the archery team members gets angry and hits the basketball team leader, starting a serious fight. During the chaos, Lin falls to the ground. The coach realizes what has happened and yells at Yang because he is the team leader, punishing him by making him train all night. Lin tries to defend Yang, saying that the basketball team is at fault and that Yang tried to stop the fight, but the coach doesn't listen to her. Lin then goes to Yang while he is training, and after he finishes, his hand is hurting. Lin approaches him and says that he couldn't beat her in a hand game and challenges him to a match. Yang says he can easily defeat her, but Lin cheats and wins. Yang asks her what her request is, and Lin says, "Promise me you will remain the team leader until you win the tournament." Yang agrees, and they start playing together, showing that they are very happy and their relationship is improving. The next day, Lin visits her mother in the hospital and sees that her mother brought the gift she wanted. Lin says, "I am very happy to be close to you and to see you all the time." Her mother is pleased with her words and hugs her.